Hey guys, welcome back to the Max Impact Theory. This is the third episode in our three-part series, so enjoy. And we could talk. Why don't we talk about that real quick? So the reason that he said he doesn't do goats is because goats are actually, it's hard to have a sustainable, farming operation with goats. And the reason is like, so the most successful goat operations are like the Bedouins, like they're, they're people that are always moving around. They follow their herds around, and that's because goats are browsers, shoulders and up, so they'll eat things off of trees and stuff like that, and more like things that aren't like super rich. Like cows wouldn't eat that stuff. Cows eat grass.
Yeah, they
rich.
like all this stuff that the cows won't eat and that farmers hate to have
and
around.
So the only way you can do it sustainably is actually going around to other farms, and once you clear out your own place and eating all the briars and stuff, you have to go to other farms and be like, hey, we'll get rid of your weeds and briars and stuff for you.
Eventually, you don't have anything that they like.
And they will graze on grass, but the problem with that is it's too nutrient rich, and they'll actually start getting rotten teeth, hip problems, skin problems. They'll get hoof problems.
Oh, wow.
And because it's like, basically them eating grass like that is like eating candy bars all day.
Oh, okay.
It's really bad for them.
Huh.
And so you have a bunch of health issues with your goats, and then they're no longer viable.
Well, there goes my wife and my dream of having a goat farm.
You can do it. You just got to be, you just have to have area around of like briars and stuff, and then you can move on. Or I guess if you have like a small enough amount and you rotate them, maybe the briars will grow back or something. I don't know. But he said that's why he doesn't do goats, because the pigs will do the job that he needs, and goats are harder to take care of.
Yeah.
Because pigs, you just throw them.
I wonder if sheep are the same way.
No, because sheep will graze.
Okay.
Yeah, they graze on grass.
So it's just the goats.
Good luck getting your wife to want to eat sheep, though.
Oh, yeah, no, it would never happen. Especially lamb.
I know my wife has a big problem with that.
Yeah, especially lamb.
I tried like ordering lamb. She's like, "You're gonna eat?" I was like, "I've never had lamb. I really wanted a gyro." And they're like, "You can't have lamb gyro. It's a baby sheep." I was like, "Okay, fine. How about the mutton?" "You can't eat mutton. It's a sheep." I was like, "So is it the baby problem, or is it just the whole species you have a problem with?"
So mutton for you?
So I'm gonna have to go out somewhere and try to get a lamb gyro just so I can.
Yeah, don't even try to get some veal in front of my wife or your wife.
But the thing is like, so I want to try sheep. Why can't I have mutton? It's just like if I had a steak. I'm fine not eating veal. I don't need an extra tender steak,
Yeah.
But I just wanted a gyro, and they only had lamb gyros, so no gyro for me. So back to the pigs. They will put them in an area for 5 to 12 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, I kind of gotten to the point, but it's always the sweet spots between 5 and 12 days. And they will basically rototill the area. They'll take up all of the, they'll do the good grass and the bad grass. They'll do the briars. They'll eat the, all
so
the
they
weeds.
clear out the area.
Yeah, they'll clear out the areas. And so he's found out that if you do less than 5 days, the whole because they'll stamp it down, they'll rototill it up. It's basically ready. He'll just throw some seed on it, and it'll grow back whatever grass he wants in there. But if you do less than 5 days, the seeds won't actually take, and the briars and thistles will grow back. So you basically have like a briar and thistle grove.
Okay.
I guess that's one way you could do a sustainable goat farm. Have pigs and goats, right?
Yeah.
And then if you do more than 12 days,
so you only let the pigs out there for 5 days, and then you let the grow back and let the goats out there.
There you go. And if you do it for over 12 days, then it'll come back as just a bunch of ground weeds.
Oh, okay. So you're actually like almost changing the ecosystem.
So if you do less, then it's briars and thistles, and if you do more, then it's basically just ground weeds. And so he says between 5 and 12 days, he can kind of tell, like after doing it for a while, you can kind of tell what area needs like how long. And so if you do 5 to 12 days, they'll tear it up, and then the healthy grass will grow, and so you'll have those wooded pastures where you can give your cows a break on a really hot day, or you got extra fly problems for some reason, you can send them in there. Or it's just like another pasture. You don't have to clear cut a bunch of woods and put all that money and time into doing something. You just send the pigs in there, and rotate them around, and then the next season or whatever you'll have another pasture to put your cows in.
So you clear the area out with the pigs.
Yeah. And so with those manure piles.
Now, wait, one more thing. If you take the pigs, are we saying they go out for 5 to 12 days, right? And then
in
you take them out.
In a single area.
Now, are you saying that he's planting grass seed at that point?
Sometimes he'll plant grass seed,
or does it just naturally come up as grass?
It's
the
a
grass
mixture. It won't come up as thick as he wants it to, so he'll throw some grass seed out there.
But okay, so
but some of it will grow
wow,
back.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So another thing with the manure pile. So you have the cows making manure in the wintertime when they're, pooping in the barn. And then you have the chickens that are, summertime basically on poop duty. And then in the spring, the pigs, are on poop duty from the winter.
Yeah.
And then you have these mountains of manure from all the barns that you had them in. And so you have them in piles, right? And so he will feed his 1,200 chickens.
Mm-hmm.
1,200 on just the compost piles he has.
Okay.
From the manure, and then he'll also get food scraps. Every once in a while, he'll accept food scraps from
so
restaurants.
So you want the worms out of the compost piles? Is that, or they'll also eat, I guess, the extra seeds and
they'll eat bugs, grubs, bacterial and fungal components from the manure that's in there. They'll eat residuals from the restaurants, grocery stores, schools.
Okay. And
kind of just the food waste from there. They also have cultivated their own worm farms on other parts of the farm or in that area. So there's this part up on top of one of these hills where he has a greenhouse, and basically there's usually a lot of worms there, so they'll only eat enough to make sure that there's still worms there. So they kind of cultivated their own worm farm. It's kind of funny.
Oh yeah. So they don't eat them all because
so
they're
it's
like,
not just
we got to leave a few worms.
But there's chickens always on the compost.
We got to leave a few worms so that they can reproduce.
And so he's got a pretty decent egg laying, business off of just compost that he gets from his other parts of his farm. So he gets like 600 eggs a day.
Okay.
Off of not feeding chickens.
That's a lot.
That's not including the chickens from the field, but I don't think that's a huge enough number to add.
I wonder where he sells them. Is he sell them from his farm to grocery stores, or is this like an organic thing?
600 eggs a day. I'm sure it's like local grocery stores. I don't know if that's like,
you got to sell a lot.
Ship them out of state kind of grocery stores.
That's a lot.
But that's a lot for free.
Yeah.
Basically, all I has to do is have the chickens.
Wow, I wonder how he processes it. Can you imagine processing all those eggs? That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And
I'm sure he has. I'm sure he has some mechanized system to do that because that's a lot of eggs.
He has a lot of help.
Oh, okay.
And the way he does things is pretty revolutionary. That he has people that will actually intern under him to learn how he does it in order to go start their own farms or work at other farms and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So
he
has
do that a lot.
He has like on-site housing for interns and stuff like that.
Yeah, I saw a farm kind of like this on Dirty Jobs, and the guy I think he was raising pigs, and he had like a system kind of like this. But the interesting part was he actually had a cesspool of the pig poo, and it had like a tent over it, and it actually produced methane, and he would drain off the methane, and that's how he'd heat his barns and his house. Like some of these guys are just like so smart. It's unbelievable how smart these guys are.
Yeah, and that's just like, imagine not having to pay to heat your house or your water or anything.
Just because
that's another bill you don't have to worry about.
Yeah. It's a great savings. I don't know how much the system cost him, but they made it sound like it was like almost a homemade system, like he did it himself.
Yeah.
So I think in that case it would probably be pretty.
I'm sure eventually it would pay itself off and then some.
Oh yeah.
So
continuing on.
So what happens with the fertilizer? If the stuff he doesn't use on his fields because he says he doesn't really have too much, he'll actually sell. So after the chickens pick through it, after the pigs pick through it and get what they want, because the pigs, aerate it, and then he puts it in the piles, and the pigs eat from it again.
Yeah.
After they get done with it, he actually will sell it as potting soil.
Oh, okay.
And so basically, like, it's waste that he turns into fertilizer if he needs it, food for his egg production, feeds his pigs off of it, and then sells it at the end. If that's not just like money making, ingenuity.
This guy's got to be a millionaire.
I don't know.
He's probably
the videos I was watching. He's dressed like a farmer, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Well, that's even better for him.
His parents paid off his farm. The farm. I think he's third generation farmer or something like that. This farm's been in the farm for 2 generations.
Well, that guy I just told you about with the methane from the pig. He was a pig farmer.
Yeah.
I believe Mike Rose said that he was actually the richest entrepreneur of any of the people that he had on the show.
Yeah.
And he looked like you said, he was like, in bibs and, out there slinging,
slinging slop.
Yeah, it was a slop. Like he got all this slop from Vegas or something and would feed that to his pigs.
Yeah.
So this guy's probably that you're talking about. I don't know. I bet he's making some good money.
Yeah. I mean, I know he's written a book or 2. He has his own YouTube channel. I think.
Okay.
I think he has his own YouTube. He's all over YouTube. If you just look up Joe Salentine.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look him up.
It's really interesting. But he also talks about how because he's rotating his cows every day and he doesn't have to do all the things, he basically has made his production to the point where he said that farmers normally measure their acreage by this paddock where you keep your cows. It's a 80 cow day paddock, so it's either 1 cow for 80 days or 80 cows for 1 day.
Oh, okay. So he has it all. He probably has it all figured out. Like, I have 80 cows and they're in this field, and then I have my other 80 cows over here.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of rotate them around.
But he said because I forget what the number was, but because he rotates his cows every day, each pasture turns into like 2 or maybe 3 times as many cow days in one pasture.
Oh, okay.
Because of how he's rotating it, so that it doesn't have as much effect on it.
Yeah.
That he can actually rotate. If he rotates them every day, then he gets so much more out of his pasture.
Yeah.
And so now you can also do this on a homestead or like a home level if you have a little bit of property.
Would you use smaller? You're saying with cows and everything, or
so this guy doesn't use cows. He uses 2 pigs and 30 chickens. But you
Okay.
can have less chickens than that. You could have 1 pig. It'll just take you longer. This is the system that this guy has set up. So I got most of this information from Justin Rhodes. He has a YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
He's starting a homestead and stuff like that. He has, it's smaller. It's him and his 3 kids and his wife.
But he goes around and interviews a lot of people.
Yeah, he did the Great Farm something.
I like his videos, and the other guy I really like is Curtis. I think it's Curtis Stone, and he's called the Urban Farmer. Their stuff is really good on YouTube.
Yeah, if you guys want to, get more information, definitely look these guys up. But basically, so he has 30 chickens and 2 pigs, and what he'll do is he'll have it's basically to net with electric, with wire woven into the fiber, and then he can electrify that so it keeps the predators out and it keeps the chickens and pigs in. And so what he'll do is he will have the plots. So he'll have a plot. He'll do it. I think he rotates through it 8 times in one winter.
Yeah.
Or he'll rotate through 8 plots twice a winter, I think, like that. And so he'll have them in a plot. The pigs will eat the grass, stomp out the grass, rototill it up, basically like they did with the manure.
Yeah.
And then the chickens will eat, the bugs there and the bugs out of the feces, and make sure that the pigs aren't getting sick. So they'll take the microbial things out of the poop. and then he'll move them from plot to plot. And so in the springtime, all he has to do is just plant his crops because it's already rototilled and fertilized.
Yeah.
And so he does that during the winter. His chickens and his pigs are getting fed, and he's basically no machinery needed to rototill his garden for the summer.
Yeah, this is unlike in this area where they have to take the spreader out.
Yeah.
And still do the rototilling.
And so these are just
some
some things that people are doing with it's sustainable farming. Like this guy, like the guy with the cows, he has the system where he just kept on introducing finding a place, finding an opening, and then putting another species in there. So basically his whole farm is just species helping each other out and making it a healthier and happier farm, and definitely more sustainable because he's not as much money in food cost, if any. His property's healthier, like the grass and stuff like that. He has, he doesn't have to pay for machinery to till up certain areas, and it's a.
I think I told you over the summer. Every year we go to this Landis Valley Farm in Lancaster and PA. And they have it's basically a farm that's run like a Pennsylvania Dutch farm, and they have a really interesting museum, and it's really cool. I went through it for the first time last year or this year, and reading how the Pennsylvania Dutch work their farm is really interesting. It's very similar to what you're talking about is using a proper rotation of crops and animals. And they were one of the first farmers that were able to go to a spot and stay on the same farm instead of farm it until the land's doesn't have the fertility anymore and then just move.
Yeah.
And that's what these guys are actually doing. They figured out a way to keep the fertility in the soil enough that they can just keep on using and regenerating
and it's
itself.
It's big, it's sustainability.
It's very sustainable.
This guy, Joe Salatin, he was talking about how the farm, the reason it's only been in the family for two generations, I think he was a teenager when they bought the farm, was because his father's dream was always to do this type of farming. Like he got a lot of the things that he learned now from his father, and then he added to it. Like the rotating every day was his idea, and he started doing that. I learned a lot of things from his father because his father would just trial and error and figure things out, and it was basically revolutionary. So he would go. Always wanted to do a farm in like a developing country. Yeah. So what they did was they actually packed up and moved to Venezuela. And started a farm, and it was starting to be the point where they weren't losing money.
Why did they go to a third world country to do
because
this?
That was his dad's dream, to go into a developing country. I don't think Venezuela was a third world at that
I thought
point.
maybe there was some other method, like he wanted to find more ancient methods of farming
so
or something.
The thing is like in America there was a lot of big agricultural companies. So if you do it in a third world, or not a third world, a developing country, then you can become that.
Yeah, because you don't have the crutch of just paying for extra fertilizer and stuff like that. Yeah.
And so him being on his sustainable farming, curriculum, basically, that he would be able to do it in a developing country and then develop with it.
And then bring it to America.
His hope was to help teach other people how to do it and basically bring that developing country into the next step.
And then he ended up back in America.
Well, what happened was they were just getting on their feet. They started.
Oh, you said Venezuela, didn't you?
The farm started, making money instead of losing money, because there's always a startup cost for that.
Yeah.
And then they had to flee, and
because
he said,
I was
kind of young when it happened, but I remember guerrillas coming in our back door while we were fleeing through the front door.
Oh, okay. This is when socialism probably took over the country.
Yeah.
And just totally.
And so they had
because they really were tough on the farmers.
And they had to start over from scratch back in America.
Yeah. And
so his father, when he went down there, was 45. So when he came back, he was 50 something. Yeah. And so he wasn't old yet, but he was getting older, and he's like, how am I going to start?
Yeah.
How am I going to start over? So they decided to start over. He said the farm that they're on now, it's a beautiful farm, but he said when they started, there was basically no grass.
Yeah.
And so they had to like cultivate the land. The land was basically barren. They had to cultivate the land and turn it into the
the
animal
fertility.
metropolis that they have now.
Oh man.
And so he's like, not only is it a sustainable farm system, it's actually like you can create something from nothing with it.
I'll have to say one thing is I would never want to be a farmer in a socialist country, because if you ever look at history, farmers in socialist countries, because the first thing that always goes bad is no food, and then they blame it on the farmers. Like Russia, when the Soviet Union started, they basically killed off all the farmers or forced them out, and then mass starvation happened because they gave the property to people who didn't know how to farm. And the same thing in Venezuela is they started basically making the farmers work and stealing all their food because people were starving in Venezuela. It seems like a constant theme.
Yeah. So real quick, when we were talking about the hydroponics thing, so I looked it up on my phone because I couldn't remember.
Wow, how were you talking and looking up? I didn't see you looking up on your. I didn't.
When
even
you were
see
talking, I
didn't even
it
see you looking up on your phone.
When they the reason it was gravity fed was because what you would do is they have a top thing where the fish would be, so that it would go gravity down, and then it would go to a bottom basin, and then you take that bottom basin and you scoop it into the top basin.
Okay.
And so it's manual labor, but it's still gravity fed because you put it in. You take the same water and you put it on top.
Well, I think it would be cool is have you ever heard of Mayan bikes? It's this guy.
Yeah.
I forget what country he's in. It's like Ecuador or one of those countries down in South America. And this guy was really into making things, and he saw his first bike down there because Americans brought some and donated them to him, and he started making contraptions with them that they needed.
Yeah,
instead of using them for riding.
I think that's a movie. Like they made a documentary.
Yeah.
A dramatized documentary about him. I wanted to watch that.
But one of the things he made was they needed water pumps for wells, and he made a lot of these bikes. He would weld them into a pump to pump water out.
Yeah.
So that I was wondering,
wasn't he making windmills and stuff too for like electricity and pumping water?
Yeah, a lot. Well, the Mayan bike, he might have did other things. I know the Mayan bike was a lot.
He was really young when he started doing it too, right?
Yeah, he was. He was like I think he's older now, but I think he started when he was in his like late teens or something. But he does he's transformed bikes to do a lot of the things that they don't have power to do.
Yeah.
Like even husking, like taking corn. They eat a lot of corn down there, and to get the kernels off the corn, he made a thing where you pedal it and you stick the corn in and gets all the kernels off. So I was wondering if the hydroponics thing had some kind of mechanism like that to pump the water to the top.
I know that they were trying to find something that was sustainable to actually pump it, like whether it was a wind fan, just because you only need like a very small pump to actually get the water up there if you're doing it continuously.
Yeah.
So they were talking about solar, but they said that solar was too expensive and it wasn't, sustainable. They were talking about fans. I know that they like. So I was only there for like 6 months, and then the next group came in.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like I got a partially finished project. We built onto it, and then the next group.
And then you guys leave.
Yeah, so it was kind of like it's different classes that would come in.
That kind of stinks that you didn't get to do the whole thing, because it's kind of like you would have been able to learn the whole process where you could almost do it yourself. If you came home.
It was just the program that I was in. But I think that the next step, because we got to like basically its finished spot where we just have to like scoop the water up.
Yeah.
I remember that we'd have to stir it because all of the nutrients from the dirt and the fish, feces would settle at the bottom. So it would smell fine, and you'd stir it and it starts smelling like fish poop and stuff like
and
that.
Then you have to pump
and then you have to scoop it over.
I guess that works.
Yeah, so I think the next step was actually trying to make something that would do it automatically.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you're like growing, plants and stuff like that in a hydroponic thing, you have to visit it every day. I don't think like our thinking was scooping up buckets of water up there every day wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, So when are we going to go start a farm now?
I know, right? It's actually getting me really excited. I was like, you know what, this is really cool, like having chickens and cows together doing these things. It's making me really pumped up for something. I don't know what it was.
I don't think I'd ever be able to have. Well, I could do a vegetable farm. I don't know if with my wife I'd ever be able to do one with animals.
Well, that's what. Yeah, that's
because they'd all turn into pets.
Yeah,
and then we'd have a geriatric ward for our chickens. And cows, they'd be there for a long time.
Yeah, but the thing is like this is just something that somebody might get a spark from and do research in, because it might not have to be pigs and chickens. Maybe you can do the same thing like rototill gardens and stuff with something else.
Yeah, I was thinking that you could also, if you wanted to just do one part, say I wanted to just farm vegetables or something.
Yeah,
but I wanted to have part of this. You kind of make a deal with a neighbor that has like pigs or chickens. Well, chickens, I don't think my wife would have any problem with chickens.
Maybe you raise them or they raise them and then you feed them and then
they
slaughter
they
them.
come over. They come over and maybe my wife would be a little better if they were the ones handling the slaughtering, where you get kind of
probably
like
wouldn't
trade
like it,
for
but
the meat.
She might allow it at that point.
Yeah, because as soon as she names them, I know it's done for. Like.
Well, that's why you just name. That's why you just name them dinner 1, dinner 2, right?
Or
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah, Thanksgiving and Christmas for your turkeys. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could do the same thing with turkeys that you can chickens.
Yeah.
But turkeys are they take more room. They're less effective at it.
Yeah.
They give you more meat, but most people just rotate from what I've seen, most people just rotate the turkeys after the cows if they wanted to, but not in the middle of. I don't think that works as well. But I mean, people love doing chickens because they get eggs out of the deal too.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any final thoughts here on everything?
Not really. Like I said, you guys can check out Justin Rhodes. That's his YouTube channel, and then Joe Salatin, and then who did you have?
Curtis. I think it's Curtis Stone, the urban farmer. He's up in Canada.
Maybe we'll put some links in the description to their YouTube channels.
He does market farming, which I find really interesting too. There's a lot of good guys. There's this guy that he spends half his year up in Maine. I watch him on YouTube, and half his year in Florida, and he's pretty interesting too. He does a lot of the same kind of stuff we're talking about, but he uses he actually goes into a field and uses what do they call them? A scythe?
Yeah.
And he uses a scythe to cut down the plants.
I was watching a video like that. He was saying how like it
promotes the grass growth, so you actually have a different
healthier grass.
Yeah.
And it also makes it so that the grass you're cutting down is actually better for the.
Yeah, he uses it for composting in his gardens and stuff like that.
For feeding animals.
Yeah, those guys are really interesting because the guys that are really good at this stuff, they learn skills that are. It's like they're so good at it that it seems like it should be easy because they figured out such a cool system to do it. So that guy's interesting. I can't think of his name right now, but maybe we'll pop that in the description.
I saw somebody doing it on somebody else's YouTube channel. He kind of went and found them.
Yeah.
But the guy was also doing like
his gardens in his front yard too.
Is it?
Yeah, he has like a front yard garden. And he grows like tons of food, and then he actually like bikes the food to the marketplace. And, yeah, it's pretty interesting, dude.
So the guy I saw, maybe it's the same, scythe guy, maybe it's not, but I saw somebody doing scythe, like he goes around and mows people's lawns with a scythe.
Oh, okay.
And he so not the guy with the scythe, but the YouTube channel I found him on. He does a lot of like the way people used to do it.
Okay.
Kind of theme to his YouTube channel. So he was doing stuff like how to like he would build sheds and stuff, and then he would use like old style and old material and like hand.
You have to send me the link to that. Send me the link to that.
And he would take tree bark and turn that into his shingles and stuff like that.
Okay.
And how like the Vikings would do it. Kind of old style, and then also he would do guerrilla gardening around his area.
Oh, guerrilla, like where you
but
go.
He was trying to do or decorative guerrilla gardening. So what he would do is like he'd do like there'd be like a sign.
Now you're talking
for like the
guerrilla gardening, like a guerrilla warrior kind of thing, right?
So what
Or
I
are
mean,
we talking guerrilla like the monkey gorilla?
no, guerrilla warrior. Like they
Like a
call it
guerrilla
they call
warfare,
it
yeah.
guerrilla
That's where
guerrilla gardening.
That's where you sneak into an area that has somewhere you can plant something, and you plant it, and then you come back later and pick whatever you
So
planted.
I think what he was doing was he was doing radishes.
Okay.
So they put some flowers that weren't doing too good in front of his development sign.
Yeah.
And so what he did was he took like compost and used that as mulch.
Yeah.
And then he planted beets, and so the beet or radishes or something. So the green kind of looked like ground cover around the flowers.
Yeah.
And so it looked a lot more full.
Yeah.
And then later he went back and like picked all the radishes up and stuff.
Did I ever tell you where I tried to do that?
No.
Okay, so this is a great story. So when I used to be in the shopping center, right, they had these beds out there that were supposed to have flowers in them, and they wouldn't put anything in them. So I went in there and I planted like vegetables like sweet potatoes and lettuce and things like that in there and beans, and it worked really well. The only problem was I didn't expect this to happen because our landlord usually didn't do anything, but he had somebody come out and weed. And they
so
just wiped me out. Wiped me out. It would have worked perfect. It would have worked perfect.
The one time they decided to weed.
One time they decided to do something.
I've been with you for 9 years. I've never seen that place weeded.
Well, now I don't think those beds are there anymore, but you probably remember what I'm talking about. Like there was like these wood railroad ties that were stacked up, and that's where you park your car there, and there were supposed to be flowers, but they never did anything with it. I'm like, I'm going to come out here and see if I can throw some stuff in there.
Well, remember the one time?
Maybe I should have threw some flowers in it, then they wouldn't have thought it was weeds.
Yeah, there you go. With this, I think it was this summer, or was it last? I think it was this summer when there was so there's like the crack between the building and the parking lot, and there was this big tomato plant growing out of it. At first I saw it little, I was like, that looks like a tomato plant. I was like, Tim, you see that plant growing out the side? I took a picture of it. He's like, yeah, it looks like a tomato. I was like, I think it is
a tomato plant.
So it never actually like
it was too late in the year.
Tomatoes. It was too late in the year, but it didn't give any tomatoes. But it got pretty big.
Yeah.
And so we were joking like, oh, it's probably guerrilla. That's how I learned about guerrilla gardening.
Yeah.
Was you were talking about, oh, it must have been guerrilla. There must be guerrilla gardening.
I always wanted to do a like see if we could get a space for a karate dojo and do a community garden. And at one time I was going to ask if we could do it out in that field behind us. But then now I know that they're gonna, like at that time I found out they were going to start building stuff back there.
Yeah, we do have a community garden down at the church.
Yeah, by Living Hope Church. But I wanted to. Before that was even there.
Oh, okay.
This was before that. I wanted to start something at our, karate dojo. But it was just a matter of infrastructure, trying to build the beds, and it would have been a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I just never got around to it, I guess. But maybe someday.
Yeah.
All right. So, that's all the finishers I have. You got any final thoughts for yourself here?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And don't forget, as always, if you want to send us any emails for feedback, any comments, we're at thetheory@maximpactkarate.com. And we'll see you in the next podcast.